Welcome back. So I'm going to talk about the competition or the challenge that I set, which was to take photographs from wherever you are, either in the morning or in the evening, and see the differences in light. It's been really fascinating to look at all your posts, and we've obviously got some exceptional photographers out there. At the moment, this is a pretty bad example of lighting, and it's quite unflattering. It's not my face, really. As you all know, I'm a really beautiful person, so if you think I look particularly bad, it's just the lighting. I really probably do need to invest in some better kit, really, but that's another subject for another time. Now, I know most people who watch my YouTube channel are mainly interested in 3D animation or 3D modeling, but lighting is essential, as I've said before, and an understanding of composition, lighting, all photography techniques or cinematography techniques are really important, and they'll improve your work. So let's take a look. So I talked about a few in the last blog, and I'm kind of just continuing from there, really. There's a really nice one here from Ex-Confessor. Obviously it's a bit strange saying people's username or handles, but for the most part that's all I've got, so we'll have a bit of fun with that. So this one's really nice. It's a very yellowy look, orangey, that suggests it's in the evening, so it's a sunset rather than a sunrise. And Ex-Confessor's just found a picture, I believe, of the place that they live, but it illustrates the point really well. And lots of people, once they rendered, will put a filter over the top, a colour filter, to give it a certain look. And in this case, a yellowy, orangey filter would suggest evening. And it's often known as the golden hour because that's the best time for photography. We've got a great one here from XRDJ6C, who's one of my admin. And again, we've got that nice reddy glow that you get in the evening. And in this one, you can really see how it's affecting the buildings. So in our scenes, an HDRI in the background will colour the scene dependent on the colour of that HDRI. Now this is an interesting one from Raincoat. They're in the Midlands, so in the UK, and this was last year when it was snowing. Now it looks really bluey, and that's actually because the cameras can't actually cope with all the white, and they end up making it all blue. But that's something to consider. If you're trying to fake what cameras do, then maybe it's worth trying to add that imperfection that the camera adds. Some people add what's called chromatic aberration. That's where the colours kind of separate around the edges of objects, and that's what lenses and cameras often do. So people add it to their 3D scenes to make them look more realistic. This is one from Aussie33. Again, a nice sunset, and this again is what happens to cameras. If you point them directly at the sun, everything else becomes black because they can't cope, in the same way as our eyes can't cope, with light and dark looking at them at the same time. And that's called the dynamic range, and that's why some cameras are more expensive than others, because they have a better sensor and a better dynamic range. And that's another point about 3D rendering. In Blender, you can actually change your color settings to filmic, and that gives you a much larger dynamic range, and then you can see information in the shadows and see information in the light bits. I don't know why they don't make that default actually, because it's so great. You always need to turn it on, especially if you're trying to make things look realistic. And we got one here from, that's the only way I can pronounce it because it's sort of like an emoji. It looks like the evening because it's reddy coloured. They've got morning or evening question marks, so they're obviously challenging me, but I would say because of the red colour that it's probably the evening. I could be wrong though. Now here's one from Horseflop, and they're in the Netherlands. And this again illustrates the point of diffuse lighting, and when the sun shines through clouds, you get nice soft shadows everywhere. So remember, in whatever 3D program you're using, you can change the hardness or softness of the shadows. In Blender, it's clicking on the light and changing the settings of the softness and the hardness, which strangely is under the size setting. I'm not really sure why they do that. Now here's another one from Nayland. They're a really active admin, so you've probably come across him already. And the interesting thing about this one is that the temperature of light is really high. He's from Iowa, and I always wondered when I was watching American films how they get their footage so bright and vivid, and the colours all seem very vivid. And that is the temperature of light. In Britain it's often quite grey, and even on a sunny day it still feels a bit grey, and that's because of the temperature of the light. So you can actually tell where a film's made often by the temperature of light. Here's one from Not a Weeb. They must live somewhere close to Britain anyway, because the light temperature has that sort of greyish feel, and it's a nice soft light. Now here's one from Kidia, and this one illustrates an interesting concept of depth of field. And you can change the depth of field in Blender, and it gives some really nice results, so worth looking into. It can make things look more realistic. All it means is the depth or area that's in focus. But the background being blurred like this really adds some interest. And there's another one from Kidia, and it's got a really orangey yellowy look. It looks really nice, and you can see why people often put filters over their renders once they've finished, because you can get these nice looks like this, which just looks great. I'm noticing I'm really liking all the ones with water in, and reflections often add a lot of interest to a photo or a 3D render. worth bearing in mind, I think. And here's a couple from Yash, actually their real name, I think they posted Ishua Navarro, I think. And I've been having a chat with them recently because they went to film school. Their pictures are really nice, and they've obviously got a very nice camera because they've got good dynamic range. You can see the sky in the shot, and the lights and the dark seem to have quite a lot of information in them. It's a really nice shot construction. And the second one's really nice as well. It's at night time, and it's got a real bluey tint to it. And that's something I'm often saying to people. If you're trying to show a nighttime scene, don't just take away all the light. Just give your lights a blue tint. That gives it the illusion that it's nighttime, because moonlight can have a very bluey temperature. And the last one's from DevBoy, again another one of my admins, and I'm having to do this because he posted a lot of his sideways, but it's a really nice shot, a really nice shot. One of my favourites. I'm not giving out any winners in this competition because it's just a challenge, but it's a really soft yellowy light, and it's giving everything a really warm feeling. So thanks everybody for getting involved in that challenge. I really enjoyed seeing where people are from and what different temperatures of light there were from their location. I'm definitely going to do lots more competitions and challenges. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Keep the discussion going. If you haven't already, get on the Discord server. It's good fun, lots of lovely people on there, and thanks very much for everybody's involvement. It's been great. Thanks for watching.